Mark Parrish, MD of Cortexa. Welcome to our studio box.
Thank you, Peter.
We're here at the BMF conference and we're talking about training.
Indeed.
And Mark, I wonder if you could begin by just explaining a little bit about what Cortexa do.
We are an online training business, so we develop and deliver primarily product-based training along the building materials supply chain. So we partner with a good number, over 100 of UK manufacturers to help them educate their resellers in product and technical issues. So we will deliver training online to people such as Jewson, to MKM, to Elliott's, Bradford's, all those builders merchants who have a need for product training. We deliver that need.
Excellent. So we've just conducted some research fairly recently, Mark, and what we find is that amongst the merchants that we interviewed, the number one sort of the most popular form of training that was used was that of the manufacturers at their site or at their branch. Actually, at their branch was the most popular. And then there were a number of other things, and online training came fifth. Now, then I add to that another piece of information we found in our survey that when they were looking for information, the number one source of information for any given product or application for product was using the manufacturer's website.
Yeah.
So is this sort of they're sort of opposing views, it seems to me, and yet where does it all fit in?
That's a very good question, but it's a many-level question. There's several tiers to that. The first thing I'd say, the people who gravitate towards this industry are generally pretty practical people. Right. And they like to get their hands on the product. So it's totally unsurprising that people are going to say the best way to learn about the product is to build with it or to lift it or to touch it. And that, we can't compete with that, and we never plan to. The second thing is e-learning for the building materials industry is we're still in the early stages. I mean, we've been around for 10 years. But the process really only started to take off in 2006, 2007, then we hit the recession. So we're now back on an upward curve as things are spreading. And there's also a balance between information retrieval and learning. So for me, learning is about preparing for events that might happen in the future. Some of the activities where you're going to retrieve information from a manufacturer's website or what I'd call performance support. They're to help me to do my job now. Right. Yeah, I need a specific information about a pallet size or a density or a size or a colour, so I go for that information very quickly. If you could get it on your mobile phone, it'd be even better. Yeah, but the website is a good source of that material. We've always positioned ourselves as saying, we will work with merchant staff and other people who specify a product to the extent that they can have a grown-up conversation with the tradesman about that product. And if we can do that, then I think we've done our job.
Excellent. We've been learning a lot about training and the way youngsters are engaged, Generation Y, and their use of social media particularly, and presumably that's something that's also feeding into the popularity of online training.
It is, yeah.
What next?
We've focused pretty squarely over the last 4 or 5 years on getting a foundation of good quality product and technical training to the desktop of merchants and specifiers and architects throughout the supply chain. And we've got that base. So if I'm a school leaver and I need to understand bricks, blocks, windows, foundations, drainage, all those sorts of things, I can get that foundation information. And that will continue. And that's what I would call the sort of command and control training that a manager of any business will want to present to his staff. Get your foundations, get your certificates, and then you can pick up the phone to customers. What we're finding going forward is that having achieved that base level, people want information quicker and faster and more instantaneously. The generation that's coming into the workplace now tend not to carry an awful lot of information in their heads. Right. Because they can get it from their phone. They can tap, they can Google, they can grab information, or their tablet, or they can jump to a website on their laptops. and soon to be on their wristwatches,
yeah,
smart watches. Yeah. So we've got to be able to present information in a range of formats. That's quick bites of information that are available on mobile, but we also got the foundation and the compliance pieces on desktop. So it has to be a range of propositions. There's no one online solution that's going to solve everything.
So that's very interesting. So we're moving away from just retaining lots of data, information, and trying to dig deep into the brain and regurgitate that to a customer, to having the basics in place and then being able to access the relevant up-to-date information through mobile networks and the like.
That I think is going to be a challenge that we do face. So I understand what a drainage product does, but I've no idea what the XYZ 2000 does. So, but that's what it does, and working with customers that sort of way is going to be that's going to be a commonplace activity on a trade counter, where the technology can present rich pictures, can present applications, technical strengths and limitations. All those sorts of things can be done, can be brought to life. But the trade counter salesperson and the frontline salesperson still needs to know where to look for it and to understand the context so they know what information to look for.
That's very interesting. We had in our box Carl Plunkett from Pimlico Plumbers talking about their need for that level of knowledge, the behind-the-counter knowledge for their staff to be able to go, for their plumbers, their tradesmen to go into the merchant, understand very quickly from the expert behind the counter what is required, what the solution, different application. They haven't got time to waste in looking for it and speculating and so on. So time is a very important factor, not only for the tradesman but for the merchant. For actually getting the merchant to send people off on to different sites for training is another factor. But what sort of time are we looking at for online training? What sort of realistic allocation of time?
I would say if you average it over a month, probably 15 minutes twice a week would keep you topped up in terms of base product knowledge. Induction's a little bit different. You would think, in the first 4 to 6 weeks of employment with a business, you'd expect somebody to be doing 6, 8, maybe 12 hours of learning to really base in that, to establish that base. But thereafter, product changes, technical changes, regulatory innovation, changes, those sorts of things can be accessed very quickly in those 15-minute time slots. Most modules that we would present now would be 15-20 minutes at the most.
So not long.
But they still bookmark. So if you do get interrupted, you don't lose your place. They're assessed, so that you've still got that monitoring from a management perspective.
And that all in the context of blended learning. So using the on-site, in-branch type.
So, one of our customers had a very successful campaign where they established a hierarchy of their training. So, in order to attend the champion training at the factory, they had to complete the e-learning module and get so many points.
Yes.
So it was a prerequisite. So when people turned up for the face-to-face training, it was really high value-add training.
Yes.
For those product champions. They weren't covering the basics of what is the product and how does it work and what colour is it and all those sorts of things. Because we can cover that in e-learning, and that's valuable when people want to learn, when they've got the time. You can then, that very expensive face-to-face time, you can really leverage and get value out of that.
And finally then, they get value out of it, but does it translate into value added?
That's a question that's vexed trainers and HR departments over generations, Peter. So we've run a couple of well-coordinated campaigns with our manufacturer partners. We did one particularly with Wiesmann, the UK arm of the German boiler company, and they had a very successful campaign into one large region in Plumbase, where they felt the combination of point-of-sale presence and e-learning, which was incentivised, increased their sales by 40% in a 6-month period, compared to the previous 6 months. Now that, it's anecdotal because the training, as with any marketing initiative, is only part of the equation. But our customers wouldn't be coming back and reordering if they didn't think they were getting value from what they were buying from us.
Excellent, Mark. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.